Hello and good morning everyone. Today we will discuss about product-oriented performance-based assessment. Now let us meet the reporters. The first reporter is Catherine L. Ola. The second reporter is Miss Regine D. Pilaes. And the last reporter is Althea Aina Ulpot. Objectives. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to A. Articulate product-oriented performance-based assessment, and letter B. Design the most appropriate authentic assessment tool for learning objectives relevant to field of specialization. So what is performance-based assessment? Performance-based assessment has led to the use of variety of alternative ways of evaluating the student's progress, such as journals, portfolios, and projects compared to the traditional paper and pencil testing. Performance-based test requires performance-based assessment in which actual students' performance is assessed through a product. What is the product we are referring to? Product are such as completed project or work that demonstrates level of task achievement. With these skills and demonstrated performance, teachers can easily assess students' progress by evaluating students' made product. Let us now proceed to product-oriented learning competencies. What is student performance? Student performance can be described as the target learning outcomes that students are expected to achieve that leads to a specific product or competency. Products are a wide array of students' work that target specific skills, and with this product, we can easily assess students' progress and attain skills. Some of the skills are skills demonstrated to reading, writing, speaking, and listening or psychomotor skills, requiring physical abilities to perform a given task. Next is rubrics. So what is a rubrics? Rubrics can help evaluate student performance or proficiency in any given task as it relates to a final output or product or learning outcome. It provides significant information about the level of the student's achievement. The question is when to use product-oriented performance-based assessment. We use product-oriented performance-based assessment when the product of the activity is more important than the performance of the student in the process of learning. Just like process-oriented performance assessment, product-oriented learning competencies are assessed with an assessment linked to the level of expertise manifested by the product. And product-oriented learning competencies target at least 3 levels, and these levels are number 1, novice or beginner's level, number 2, skilled level, and level 3, the expert level. And this is the pyramid of level of expertise to follow. From level 1, the question is, does the finished product illustrates the minimum expected parts and functions? So that is a novice or the beginner's level. From level 2, the question is, does the finished output contain additional parts and functions on top of the minimum requirement? It means that the students add parts and functions that surpasses the minimum requirement from level 1. So that is a skilled level. The level 3 and the last expertise is, the question is, does the finished product contain the minimum requirement have additional features, and aesthetically pleasing? In this level, both level 1 and level 2 expertise are combined to achieve the highest level or the expertise level, and it is called the expert level. Below are some examples of product-oriented performance-based assessment. Number 1 example, the product desired is a scrapbook illustrating the historical event called EDSA 1 People Power. The learning competencies are: the scrapbook presented by the students must, number 1, contain pictures, newspaper clippings, and other illustrations of the main character of EDSA 1. That is the minimum specification. Number 2, contain remarks and captions for the illustrations made by the student himself for the roles played by the character of EDSA 1 People Power. So that is the skilled level. And number 3, the presentable, complete, informative, and pleasing to the reader of the scrapbook. So that is the expert level. Thus, we see how the level of ability changes from beginner level to expert level. We see the level of complexity that can easily help in assessing and evaluating a student's performance based on what he or she has done or made product. Another example is that performance-based assessment for product and projects can also be used for assessing outputs for short-term tasks. The example is, the desired output consists of the output in a typing class. And the learning competencies are, the final typing outputs of the students must, number 1, possess no more than 5 errors in spelling. That is the minimum specification. Number 2, possess no more than 5 errors in spelling while observing proper format based on the document to be typewritten. That is skilled level. And number 3, possess no more than 5 errors in spelling, has the proper format, and is readable and presentable. Product-oriented performance-based learning are evidence-based. So that is the expert level. Because of this level of expertise, we can easily see and assess the extent to which a student's ability, and teachers can easily evaluate the product produced by the students based on the learning competencies and level of expertise, or simply to what level that the student's ability reach. If you will observe the performances in the example, it is an evidence-based. So what is an evidence-based? Evidence-based or product-oriented performance-based learning competencies needs concrete evidence that the student has achieved a certain level of competence based on product. And as a teacher, needs concrete evidence that the students have achieved a certain level of competence based on their made output or product. Now let us now proceed to task designing. Task designing is the design of the task depends on what the teachers desires to observe as outputs of the students. And we have 4 things to consider in designing an assessment. Number 1, complexity. Number 2, appeal. Number 3, creativity. And lastly, number 4 is goal-based. The number 1 thing to consider in task designing is complexity. And it has 2 questions. The number 1 question is, are my students capable of doing such ambiguous output? And number 2, is the product age appropriate? So, it means that Too simple are interesting, and too complicated are frustrating. So it means that the level of complexity of the project needs to be within the range of ability of the students. Designing an assessment must be critically made for the appropriateness of tasks for the students. The second one is appeal. The questions are: is the product enjoyable to create? And number two, are the students going to enjoy doing it while moving towards the desired learning outcome? Simply, the product or the activity must be appealing to the students. And product should be interesting enough so that the students are encouraged to pursue the complete the task. For the students to be more engaged, a product or activity must be catchy, enjoyable, or appealing while they are having fun and learning at the same time. Number three is creativity. And the question is, how does one best present the expected output? It means that the product needs to be encouraged students to exercise creativity and divergent thinking. And divergent thinking is think out of the box. The project should lead to exploring various possible ways of presenting the output. Even in the making of the project, the creativity of students comes out, and it can be shown if they show their creativity in presenting their completed work or project. And the last in task designing is goal-based, and it has two questions. And the first question is, will the output project the desired learning outcome? And number two, will the project showcase the overall desired learning outcome? It means that the teacher must bear in mind that the project is produced in order to attain a learning objective. Products are assigned not just for the sake of producing something, but reinforcing learning. Therefore, each task must be carefully designed to ensure that it is appropriate, aligned, and focused on the desired learning outcome. Now that we all know what is performance-based assessment, product-oriented learning competencies, when to use product-oriented learning competencies, level of expertise, and task designing, let us hear from Regine Pelaez to discuss how to craft our rubrics.
Good day everyone. This is Regine Pelaez and I am going to discuss about crafting the rubrics. Establishing a student's ability to perform a task takes more than a good activity. It necessitates the use of a gadget or tool to assess the skill. This tool is usually a rubric. A rubric specifies the skill being assessed as well as what determines the various levels of performance success. To have a meaningful performance-based evaluation, you must first create an appropriate rubric. Scoring rubrics in product-based performance-based assessment requires judgment from the evaluating body. It is typically employed in essays and evaluating projects, such as scrapbooks. Judgment concerning the quality of a given writing sample may vary depending upon the criteria that was set. When creating a rubric, it is important to consider what to measure, how to measure performance, and decide what the passing level of performance competency is. Although a general rubric design can be reused, it may need to be fine-tuned or altered significantly to meet the specific needs of each task activity. That is why we have this criteria, and the measurements for scoring rubrics, as I said, are statements that identify what really matters in the final output. So here are the most often used for evaluation outputs. First is the quality. Next, creativity. We also have comprehensiveness, accuracy, and aesthetics. From these major criteria, you may break it down more focused and specific. Let's just say that you ask your students to write a journal about the effects of COVID-19 pandemic to the socioeconomic status of Filipino families. The major criteria comprehensiveness may possess sub-statements such as showing facts and figures to support the claim, succeeding in interrelating various sectors impacted by the pandemic, and the arguments presented have a factual basis from established resource. This is an example of a rubric for the assessment of English 101 essays. Maximum of 15 points for each essay. And the criteria for the rubric are the following: introduction, main points, organization, style, and mechanics. So these are what students have to perform or what should be seen in their essays. And the students, in each criteria, the students may receive or get 3 points, 2 points, 1 point, or 0. Let us now proceed to the process of developing scoring rubrics. The development of scoring rubrics goes through a process, and the first step in the process is knowing and listing down the identifiers of the expected learning objectives. This is constructive alignment in authentic assessment. So first, we must define the behavior to be assessed or evaluated. So to determine what behavior students must perform or what they must be able to accomplish. Next step is setting the highest and lowest levels of performance. As a teacher, you determine the type of performance that would constitute the best and worst performance. By doing this, you will have an idea of the middle level of performance for the concept being measured. This comparison process can be used until the desired number of levels of mastery is reached and no further distinctions can be made. So that's all for crafting the rubrics. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Aina Althea M. Alpot from BKED 3. Sample of crafting product-based performance assessment. So now, let us look at how we design a task towards performance outcome-based education. Here are the sample of task design for grade 7 arts. So first is the setting the expected learning outcomes based from the curriculum guide. So at the end of the fourth quarter, the students can identify the festival and theoretical forms celebrated all over the country throughout the year. Specifically, by the end of the grading period, the student can first identify the elements and principles of arts as seen in Philippine festivals. Second, the student can design the visual elements and components of the selected festival through costumes and props. Third, the student can analyze the uniqueness of each group's performance of their selected festival in the theatrical form. And last, a student can perform in a group showcase of the selected Philippine theatrical form. So second is the task designing for the objective, or how we notice how specific objectives are related to the activities. So the objectives are: let the students create portfolio showcasing different festivals in the Philippines with their learning insights attached and identification of the different elements. So they also conduct a study of their local festival and including identification of the different theoretical elements present. And student can select a specific festival and let them perform at the end of the quarter as their final performance. And last, for the sample task is end of the unit performance assessment, practical, appealing, measurable, and relevant. So, let the students select a specific festival and let them perform at the end of the quarter as their final performance. So now, how do we achieve the quarter objective on a day-to-day basis? So, first, at the beginning of the quarter, assign groups that will report on a specific festival. So they can use a reference book, videos, or any resource material and let the member of the group collaborate to tackle the element of theater present in their selected festival. So they can achieve the quarter objective also in group report each meeting on specific elements of principle of their assigned task. So as a short assessment and retention purposes, conduct traditional assessment every after discussion so that they can achieve the objectives in a day-to-day class. They can also achieve as an enhancement activity, let the student create several crafts such as their costumes, props that they will use in the final performance. So the teacher can use or create the rubrics that will use as a guide and they discuss the final performance to the class. How do we assess learning on this type of example? So, you can use the performance base or the classroom performance as a group. So, it includes the attendance and participation to group activities, the completeness of quizzes and written outputs, and also knowledge on the report that was assigned to the group. So, we can assess also is the product base or the final performance, which include the clarity, relevance of the festival on its concept, and synchronization, alignment, choreography, and other elements. And last, we can assess learning is the visual aids, musical arrangement, prop, and etc.